Hey everyone, it's David Chen. I'm here today with Peter Sciretta, editor-in-chief at slashfilm.com. We just watched the new Jordan Peele film, Us, at the Hollywood ArcLight Cinema, which is behind us right now. We're sitting outside. I thought we'd record a quick vlog to talk about the film. And before we begin, I should point out that we will be not necessarily spoiling, but like talking about what's in the trailer. So if you don't want to be spoiled on anything, you should just skip this video, and we will let you know if we're going to spoil further, but we will talk about what's in the trailer and the basic premise of the movie. All that being said, Peter Sciretta, what'd you think of the film?
Still chewing on it, Dave.
Yeah.
I do think as a horror film, this is a better horror film than Get Out.
I think this is an exceptionally well-directed horror film.
Yeah.
I think when you want to watch a good horror film, there's certain things you look for, right? You want something that's has characters you root for, that's super tense, super scary, that has good like set pieces, that has moments that make you think, that have moments that terrify you. I spent much of this film like gripping my chair, super tense, because
there's some jump scares that you like shook my chair.
Yeah, I was sitting next to Peter and I shook, right? Because it was so terrifying. Some parts of this movie are really terrifying, right?
But you know, not just that though, the character work that Jordan Peele, you know, he wrote, he directed,
produced the movie too.
Produced the movie. Every single character, even when it's stuff that like doesn't really, is very tangential to the plot, and it's just about like who they are as a person. Like every line is so perfect.
You know how sometimes things line up?
Yeah.
You know, like coincidences. Since we've been here, they've been happening more and more. I feel like it means like she's getting closer.
When this movie is thrilling, when you know, as you've seen in the trailer, basically these people show up at the house, which are copies of.
Yeah, it's like doubles. There's like doubles, and the movie takes a lot of inspiration from like funny games, in my opinion, right? Like Michael Haneke's home invasion movie.
And it introduces a mystery at the beginning, like who are these people? Why are there doubles?
The way that situation is explained, right? Like whatever explanation, whether they give you one or they don't, or whether they explain it incredibly in depth or not. My feeling coming out of the theater was that a lot of people didn't find it satisfying. Right? Like they didn't really, the movie asks a lot of you in terms of suspension of disbelief. And when a movie asks that much of you, it really needs to deliver the goods. It really needs to be satisfying. And I think a lot of people were left more confused than they were satisfied. That was my sense coming out of the theater. And I will say that from my perspective, I really had a great time with this movie. But I do think that the third act does have some real problems.
The thing I liked about this is that for that first like hour, maybe hour and 20 minutes, the tension, and it was just ramping up
non-stop tension.
Slowly. Like it was just every scene, just like ramping up, and it just like when stuff when shit goes down, it like you're just like on the edge of your seat. There's some awesome. I mean, you can tell Jordan Peele is a student of horror. Like there's can I say there's horror kills that are amazing?
Yeah, there's some really good kills in this movie, right?
Yeah. Like when the credits went up and there was a smattering of applause, and like you could tell everybody in the theater really appreciated the film, but it felt like the ending, I don't know, I'm not even sure it lost me. I have to think about it. I really want, this is the kind of film I want to read some takes on, and I want to read some interpretations on, and like you're getting our opinion right when we walked out of, and like usually you get Dave's opinion when after he's like, you know, read tons of articles, and he's really formulated it. Like now it's raw. It's really hard to, especially a non-spoiler, it's really hard to.
I will say that the movie is going to be very thought-provoking. It's going to be overall probably very well reviewed. People are going to be talking about it. It's going to be buzzy. It's a movie that everyone should see. And I think it also potentially has a lot to say. You know, there's some people, they see a movie, they're like, oh, this movie was about, you know, the ultra rich and like how they inflict, you know, sins upon the poor. Like, yes, it could be that, but it's also just like a really good horror film, right?
There's a lot to interpret, though. I feel like that, if you like movies that have, and there's so much, it seems like to me, he was like, how can I create iconic imagery? Like, there's so many scenes of iconic imagery. I can imagine like 20 different Mondo posters of like images, especially stuff in the later acts and stuff. It's like really like, you know how like Shining has iconic imagery, like there's some iconic stuff like that.
I agree with you that the imagery is very iconic, like the production design and art direction is really strong, but I almost feel like some of that iconography takes away from the believability of the plot. Do you know what I'm saying? Because I'm not thinking I'm not necessarily thinking, oh, look at how iconic this is. I'm thinking, how did these people acquire these props that they needed to make these tableaus, you know, without being as vague as possible, right?
I think if you have any problems with believability in movies, this film is a house of cards. That, you need to either buy into that premise and accept that there's probably not a great, you know, that. I mean, how would you even explain that there's doubles of us showing up at our
house?
You know,
think about like all the potential explanations for that, like just in your head, and whichever one you come up with, it's going to be like pretty implausible. And I don't know that the movie really like bridges that gap.
So if you go into the movie wanting that answer to be amazing, maybe this isn't the movie to see. But if you're going into the movie for a thrilling horror movie, this is probably the best like tense horror movie I've seen since like maybe The Conjuring.
Yeah.
First one.
I think that when I think about what this movie does better than Get Out, right, or as good as Get Out, I mean, as you mentioned, this movie is more straight up classic horror than Get Out. Get Out felt to me really plot driven. It's like he's peeling back these layers of the onion and you're learning more about this world. This movie does the same thing, right? You start with a little bit of like, oh, there's doubles, and then like they peel back the world and then you learn more and more and more. But along the way, a lot of horror-esque things occur, right? Yeah. In a way that I don't think they did in Get Out, right? Get Out was kind of like more of a psychological thriller than it was a horror film, and like this movie is like straight horror, right? One thing that is great to see about this movie, though, is you know, Get Out was made for a really small budget, and you really get to see Jordan Peele as a director kind of explore more locations and, you know, be more ambitious with the imagery, and I did like that. But ultimately, again, as we're turning it around our heads, not sure the ending was ultimately satisfying.
I also think this is a great movie that might have some rewatchability to it.
Certainly.
Like, I want to already, after seeing it then, even though like it sounds like I'm down on this because I'm saying like, you know, some stuff in the last third, I don't know if it's what I wanted it to be or whatever, but if they were telling me we could see this again right now, I would walk into the theater because I want to see some stuff again.
I was talking with some critics who had already seen the film, and they were coming back again to see it during the press screening because they'd seen it South by Southwest. The movie is very thought-provoking. It's well worth watching. Let me ask you this: do you prefer this movie to Get Out?
I do, actually. I think I do. I also like movies that invite interpretation, and I feel like this is going to have a lot of that. And it's going to be...
I think so. I think Get Out is much more explicit in terms of its themes.
Yeah.
Right? Get Out is about white people acquiring, inhabiting black bodies, and this one is much less explicit about what it's trying to say. And I actually think that's a good thing in general for movies. But yeah, I think this movie is stronger in terms of the direction. I don't know if I like the movie better, though. You know? I don't know if that makes sense. Well, I think the movie's clearly left us thinking about a lot of things and potentially confused about some things, but it's a movie that we both really enjoyed the experience of watching it, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for watching this video. Peter, where can people find your stuff?
You can find more of my work at slashfilm.com, and I run a daily podcast every weekday. It's called Slash Film Daily. If you like movies, if you like TV, go search that on iTunes or whatever your podcast app is.
Yeah, find it at daily.slashfilm.com. Find all my stuff at Dave Chensky on Twitter. I also host the Slash Filmcast. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.